Welcome, everyone. I am Mike Brookman, a technical sales specialist here at Radan, and today we're going to have a lot of fun learning all the ins and outs of tricks and tidbits, all the fun things with order text. Let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to throw up a part up here onto our nest. I'm just going to grab this guy and just kind of do a little chunk down here. Now, one of the common things that we hear a lot is that order text is hard or complicated to understand. We're going to try to overcome that today. I'm just going to throw on some toolpath on here. We're going to jump right into order. Now I'm going to use probably one of the most generic order texts that we can have. It is going to be what's the action profile or follow a line, and what's the tool we're using, our laser, basically on everything across our sheet. The one thing that we hear constantly from people mostly is they want to be able to control the flow of how it's going across the workspace. And that's going to be controlled with direction. And at the moment, I'm just going to have it off. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click entire sheet, and we'll see the direction of movement, how this is going to work. We'll go ahead and play the simulation, and I'll explain a little bit more about what's going on. One of the things that we want to cover today, and I want to be very clear about that, is I'm going to be doing a lot of clicking around, and hopefully you can follow along with the cursor. This isn't training, but this is something that's meant to be educational, and hopefully you guys learn something while you're here. And as I said, direction is something that we can control, right? So instead of me having to tell it I want to go from this part to this part to this part, I want to create basically a script of how I want this thing to follow. Now, we only have a couple of minutes today to kind of look at this, and so I'll try to get as much information to you as possible with punch and with profile as we are right now. But direction, that seems like gets where people get stuck, right? It looks like a complicated window, but it isn't. First thing we want to do is just turn it on. It defaults to start with any corner, and we don't want that. We want to be very particular about how we want this to move. And the most common is going to be if you have a laser with clamps, or if you have a punch with clamps. We want to work from the outer edge towards the clamps. So we want to force it to start in either 3 or 4. I generally pick corner 3. From there, we want to have some sort of direction statement that we want to have it move in. So if I choose we want to go to the right, or if I want to choose to come down, notice this icon is changing. And what I want you to draw your attention to is these green little windows. When I go to the right, they're going right to left. When I go down, they're going up and down. This window increment, that's the main driver. So if I put this at, we'll say 12 inches, that should cut my sheet into fourths, because I think I'm on it looks like fifths. I got a 5x8 sheet, so I should have 5 swipes coming down. I'm going to click OK, OK again. I'm going to click entire sheet. Now I have this additional thing in my order string here, a direction line. If I click on that, it's showing me this big black arrow. Basically what that's doing is it's modifying what it's actually looking at to examine, to process, coming down from corner 3 towards corner 1 in whatever dimension I gave this. So in my case, it's doing 12 inches at a time. It comes down 12 inches. Anything that's in this window, this fake window that I've got, it's going to process. It'll probably end up down here, come down another 12 inches and work its way back, another 12 inches, work its way back, etc., until the sheet is complete. Now that's a common thing throughout when you're using a direction statement. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this, and we'll see the results that we get. And notice it's not doing row by row by row, and that's because my window of engagement is too big. Those parts both fit, both those rows fit within that first or second or fifth swash of my 12 inches coming down. So I'm going to go back up here to edit. I'm going to come into my direction line. I'm going to edit the direction line. I'm going to change this to 1/4 inch. Same corner that I'm going to start in, same position, but now when I go to this direction line, oops, entire sheet, reprocess it. Now look how tiny it is. It's super small. So I'm reducing now my sheet. You know, it's 60 inches wide. I'm doing it, every 1/4 inch. So I've got not millions, a lot of back and forth. So now when I process this, it's still going to start at the top as close to corner 3 as I can. But now my part, I think, is 5 inches. So it's doing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's still within that same part until it lands. And okay, new row, I can do another row. Okay, that's the most simplest method that we can do and then control it. What type of action, what type of tooling, what type of direction. Hopefully that resonates with you, because we're going to move on to something now where we're going to bring up another part. And this is going to hopefully not confuse you, but it should indicate a little bit again as to what it, to confirm, right, what I just said about these parts having to fit. I'm just going to stick a couple of these in here. And then I'm going to maybe put a couple of these squares back on the top of it. We'll just window select. We'll have it come from all the way to from the top. Just another stack. We're going to profile the rest of those. We'll add in some toolpath. And then we're going to go over here to order text again. And I'm going to do entire sheet. I'm going to play this. It should come up rather close to the top of corner 3. We're still going right to left. My window increment is super small, so I'm forcing it to be row by row by row. Even those holes on those features are row by row by row. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I think you kind of get the idea. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to change my direction. Instead of working from the top corner, I want it to work from the bottom corner, and I want it to go across the sheet, right? So what I'm going to see now is it's going to go up and down the sheet. Still in a 1/4 inch path, because I'm truly still trying to influence it row by row by row. Entire sheet, and play this. So right off the bat, corner 1, it's doing a row, but look what happened. It jumped over this part. Again, that part has to fit completely in that window before it can do it. And so now it did, and now it's processing it again, up and down, up and down, up and down. But maybe I don't want it to do that. I don't want it to jump across my part to do my holes when I'm in that one part. I'll zoom in here a second when we get there. Okay, there. See how it's going up and down in the same part? Maybe I don't want that. I'm going to show you something here next that we can do to be able to control that. And that's going to introduce something completely new. How profiling and order text kind of work together. So if I go back here to profiling, actually I'm going to go back into the part. I'm going to drag up this part. The profiling tab is identical in part mode as it is in nesting. All that matters is where you actually do the application. So here I'm in part mode, and I'm going to tool my part. And notice all of my lead-ins all facing the same direction. Well, I want to be able to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. And instead, I want to introduce smart order leads. And when I do this, now notice all of my lead-ins kind of have a different orientation. They're pointing to the next feature that they're going to cut, preventing having to travel over something that's possibly been already cut. I'm going to save this on my part then, having profiling on it already. I'm going to delete all the profiling that's existing on my nest. Notice my parts that I have tooled in part mode still has toolpath on it. I'm going to then retool my parts without smart order on. Notice all of my lead-ins on my parts that I currently have on the nest are all back in their original stuck position. And then I'm going to order this again. Same, I'm not going to change it. We'll just do entire sheet. But now notice what happens when I run this time. I'm going to pause here just for a second. Actually, I'm going to let it play because I want you to see the effect it's going to have on that part. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about something else that's happening. Okay, much better process for being able to do that part this time. Okay, I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm actually going to, and I want to show you what's happening down here at the bottom. It says, well, my simulation's paused because I stopped it, but it's telling me, warning, your direction command, DRN, is being overwritten by smart order leads. Now that's what blows people's minds when they're trying to control something with order and a direction command. Because when I retooled this, is still bringing in my settings, trying to do smart order. And if I had parts with holes in it, you would have seen it, but it's still trying to align because in my settings here, I only have it to do the holes. So I'm giving that predictability out to the outside to have the lead in be always in the same place. If I deactivated that, reapply the tooling here, now my lead ins are going to be able to float as well, external lead ins for the part. So my lead ins for this one, even though I don't have any internal features, are all moving also. But even though I had it fixed for the outside, I'm trying to do something with order text to be able to control that direction. Well, I can't. That's the only thing that order can't control when you're doing smart order leads. So let's just look at that just for 1 second. If I'm in advanced and I have smart order on, back in here in my rules and styles, two things that takes away. It takes away this bit right here. Okay, my placement of where my lead in goes. It listens to everything else on this rules and styles page, the position, how I want it to enter, the length and the style lead in I want, but it takes away my approach entry. And it also takes away the ability to be able to control processing it across the sheet. We do have some cool control factors that we can kind of implement, but just so you know, if you are stuck trying to change this direction, right? So now my entire workspace, I'm trying to make it do something with my order text here, right? I'm telling it, let's say if I say I want to change and go like this, and we'll do a 12-inch window this time. I should see something quite different, but it's not going to ever change it. It's going to continue to do the same thing that it wants. And I'm going to constantly being told down here that it's overriding my choice to determine what it's best for smart order lead effect. Okay, so we'll stop this. We'll change it. Again, just to kind of proof in the pudding. Edit this. We're going to start in corner 4 this time. We're going to move this direction. We want to do a 3-inch window. And we're going to say OK. And then we're going to do entire sheet. And we're going to play. And it's going to do the same thing that it did the first time. I cannot control direction when I have smart order on. We're going to stop this just again. I just want to make that clear because that's one of the biggest points that people get stuck on. Okay, we're going to move on to something different now. Back in here to modify under profiling, just so we can have control. We're going to turn smart order back off. And now we're going to do something a little bit more exacting, right? How we want to edit or control the features that I have. I'm going to put up this square. It's got etching on it. Oops. Put on some of these guys. And I'm also going to throw up maybe a couple of these guys in the mix. All right, we'll tool those guys up. Come up here to order. We'll do entire sheet, and it'll process it with no problem. See, I've got my 2 conditions now. I've got condition 1, and then I have my etching. The problem with this is it's going to include etching with my laser operation because I'm not telling it to break away. How to enter in something new, you just right click in the gray space. You tell it to add. You want to add a profile command. And I want to, in this case, I want to choose a tool type or a tool or a station. In my case, I'm going to pick that I want to do a station. I want to do etching. And I want to possibly, we'll just leave it off, the control factor. And I'm going to do entire sheet, and I'm going to play. And now I want you to see the effects of what's going to happen here. There's quite a bit of data here to process, but notice that's far enough. Pause. Notice what happened with my part, right? It cut the outside of my part, and it didn't do my etching. Well, that's a problem. And it's a problem that I can easily overcome as soon as I remember any type of script that we have. Typically, it reads it from the top to the bottom. Then it goes back to the top, and then it applies it. So if I want this to happen first, it needs to be first. I can just drag it up and change the process. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to do entire sheet once more. Notice down here in my process tree, I've got a condition 5, do some stuff, condition 1, do some stuff. So now when I play this, it's going to do all the etching first. Then it's going to start cutting the parts. And we'll go ahead and stop that. So hopefully you guys can understand what's happening there. I'm going to cancel this. We're going to jump into a little bit more of an elaborate order text. This is probably what we would set up your laser if we were setting it up, if you bought it from us and we worked with our applications team and you put your post in place. This is probably the order text that you would probably get. And we're just going to walk through this so we can move on to punch. Basically what we're telling it is we're going to do a profile action, anything that's in tool 5. We're going to do profile action. And notice we didn't talk about this yet, but this drop down's got some options. We can do, scrap cuts, off cuts, no cuts, and fly cutting. In our case, what we're telling it to do is we don't want to do no off cuts and no scrap cuts, because once we've introduced that here, we need to kind of be, a little bit direct and say, if I do or don't want to do this. Basically, what this line is saying is do anything that's in condition 4 and cut it. And then we're going to do scrap cuts with all conditions. We're going to do this again. Basically, no scrap cuts, no off cuts, basically just cutting parts on every condition except for the 2 that we pulled out. And then we're doing off cuts. And that is probably the most common that we would have. So hopefully you've noticed that we can go from extremely generic to very influential about how we wanted to have this process. Okay, I'm going to cancel that just for a minute, and then we're going to go back up to our sheet. I'm going to delete all of these parts on my workspace, and I'm going to just change to a punch. Now that we understand a little bit about what's happening in that window, we're only going to just spend some time just with this part. And I'm just going to maybe just zoom in on that just a little bit closer. We'll put some tooling on it. Notice we already have this one tooled up from part mode, similar to what you would have if you had a punch. And I'm going to go to order again. And this time I'm going to select my generic punch, similar to what we had with our laser. This is very generic, but it's also calling out tools specifically in a generic fashion. So we're any type of scribe, any type of circle tool, square tool, special tool, rectangle, etc. It'll do that in this process. Again, remember, it comes to the top and then it runs down through the bottom. So when I click OK, click entire sheet, it produces, kind of a layout using all the tools that I had a need for, what station that they're in, how and where they're going to be used. After it loaded all the tools up, now if I play this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It's doing rounds, it's doing squares, and that's going to do the outside. Oops, needed to do a reposition. So I'm going to move my part up just a little bit so we get it out of that work zone. Maybe we'll do 2 inches just to kind of get it way up there. Okay. We'll do that so we shouldn't have to have a reposition any longer. And now we're going to come in here to edit, and we're going to try to control this in a little bit differently. Okay. If I right click in the space and go to add, I'm going to add that I want to do a punch command, but I'm going to select that I want to do it with an actual tool. So I'm going to come down here to tools, and I'm going to select that I want, so I'm going to control, since I have two round tools, I'm going to introduce when and how I want them to be used. So I'm going to select circular tools. I'm going to select invert the selection, basically deactivates the rest. That way, if I have a massive amount of tools, I can find the range that I'm looking for a little bit quicker. I'm going to come in and I'm going to select my 1/8 inch round, and that puts it on this line. And I'm going to slide this up to go right there, right after squares. So if you're wondering, like, how is that going to work? Remember, because I've said it reads this from top to bottom. right? So it's going to do scribes, circle tools, square tools, this tool, whatever tool that is, specials, rectangles, wheels. If I call something out by specific name, it overrides the use of it in a generic call by tool type. So in this case, all circle tools besides this one will go when it's called here. So what I should see when we're going to click OK and apply this, it should do all of the big rounds, all of the squares, and then it's going to do these 4 little holes and then go off to do rectangles. So we'll do that. Entire sheet, play, kind of get a little closer. Big holes, squares, little holes, rectangles. All right, so this time I want to add in, I want to do the 1/8 by half. So I'm going to select a tool. I'm going to, again, invert my selection, just rectangles. Come in here, find my 1/8 by half. Cancel that. 1/8 by half. Click OK. Now that's in my order text. I'm going to drag him up to go just before all other rectangles. And I'm going to tell it I want to do only ones that at 90. Right click again. I'm going to go to punch again. I'm going to select tool type rectangle. Select again. Invert the selection. Half. 1/8 by half. This time I'm going to tell it I want to do everything that's at 0 after it does all the other rectangles. So we'll click OK. Entire sheet. And play. Zoom in a little bit. Big rounds, squares, little rounds, 90s. Other tool, zeros. And there we have it. So I know, this is a lot that we've thrown at you guys, and there's still way more information that we can go into in depth on order text. But I think one final thing I want to show before we kind of cut loose. All right, so I'm back in part mode. I'm just going to drag up a part here real quick. And I need to throw in a couple of other features into this guy. So I'm just going to make just like a 1/2-inch square here and just kind of stack some hits. What I'm trying to emulate here is just a row of hits. Perhaps maybe these are louvers. And I want them to go in a particular direction. We spend a lot of time when we're talking in profile about direction. That's really good. Obviously, you can do that with a lot better precision than I just did. And then we'll go ahead and tool that up. No. And so now we've got our part with some additional features in it. We'll say yes, save that. Now we got our part again. So in our order text, once again, we've got some features in here that haven't been processed, and we want to control that in a direction command. And I think the best way to do that is to show like how we want to process these up or in a particular direction only, right? I want these to only go up, come back down, only go up, come back down, etc. So here we're going to say punch. We're going to tell it we want a specific tool. This time we're doing squares, 1/2-inch square. And we're going to do that maybe here. Maybe in a logical place, maybe before it starts doing any of the outsides. All angles, but here I want to control my direction. I don't want it to start in corner. I want it to start corner 3 again, like we talked about before, working our way towards the clamps in a very tight window of increment. We'll go quarter, moving in that direction. And now I'm going to enter another direction. So I wanted to move this way across the part, but I also wanted to only ever go up or down, right? Moving in a said direction. So we're going to click this and we're going to see the results we get with our 2-step direction. And we'll play that. Bigs, littles, down. That was very fast. Let's stop that. We'll start it again and we'll slow it down when it gets to those squares. Right now. Notice, wow, that's really slow. Down, 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 all the way to the top, down, 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 back up to the top. So we'll let that kind of continue to play as we kind of wrap up this and open it up for questions. As you can see, we have a lot of control with the order text. We can control it by features, we can control it by tools, we can control the direction. And that's one of the biggest things that people ask about. How do I control how I want this sheet to be processed? So hopefully we were able to answer some of those questions today. I know it's a little bit short-lived. If you have any additional questions that we can't answer today, please reach out to support or go out to our YouTube channel, The Radan Guys. Love to see you guys over there. For now, this has been Mike, Technical Sales. Happy to hear any type of questions you may have. Let's go.